A vast savanna stretched before Ivan, where the gentle wind moved the tall golden grasses. The sky was clear, and the afternoon heat made the horizon shimmer. The scent of dry earth and plants mingled with the warm air. In the distance, the sounds of animals and the crackling of dry leaves completed the landscape. He had been walking for days, driven by rumors of something found deep within that inhospitable region. An object that shone like the setting sun, they said. Something difficult to comprehend. Ivan was a geologist, accustomed to uncovering the secrets of the earth, but nothing prepared him for what he would find in that remote village near Bangkok. The crystal was hidden in a cave, its pulsating light reflected off the damp walls. The villagers feared it, attributing ancestral powers to it, but Ivan saw only a scientific anomaly. Until he touched its cool surface and felt an electric current course through his body, as if memories that weren't his invaded his mind. Visions of ancient civilizations, forgotten wars, and a warning whispered in a dead language. Emerging from the cave, he found Yumi, an imposing tribal leader, holding a faded map. Her clothes bore symbols that Ivan recognized from the inscriptions within the cave. Without preamble, she said, "These lands are sacred to my people. If we help protect these borders, we can achieve lasting peace." Ivan hesitated. The crystal could be the key to unimaginable advancements, but Yumi proposed a risky alliance. He knew scientists and corporations were already on their way, drawn by the news. Each choice brought consequences. Sharing the crystal would expose the tribe to forces beyond their control. Hiding it would leave the world in ignorance. While they debated, the ground trembled slightly, and the crystal emitted a more intense light, as if reacting to the tension. Ivan then realized that the object wasn't just an artifact, but a mirror. It reflected not only light, but also the desires and fears of those who touched it. A city man, guided by reason, was confronted with his own arrogance. A tribal woman, bound to tradition, questioned if her gods were testing them. That night, under a starlit sky, Ivan and Yumi built a fire near the river. The crystal, wrapped in cloths, rested between them. Yumi recounted stories of their ancestors, who spoke of times capable of revealing hidden truths. Ivan mentioned theories about cosmic energy and parallel dimensions. Their words intertwined, creating a web of possibilities. As the fire died down, they decided to take the crystal to the capital, but hide it in an ancient temple, accessible only to those who understood its true meaning. Along the way, they encountered subtle and strange obstacles that seemed to follow them. Equipment malfunctioning near the crystal and vivid dreams that mixed past and future. Upon arrival, they discovered the temple was a modern replica built upon real ruins. But the crystal guided them to an underground chamber, where other similar stones formed a circle. Ivan then understood that the true power wasn't in the object, but in the connection between the people who protected it. Yumi smiled, as if she had always known. Together, they sealed the entrance, leaving the mystery intact for those who came after. The journey to the temple demanded days of caution. Ivan and Yumi avoided the main roads, following trails only the tribe knew. The crystal, carried in a leather pouch, seemed to pulse at irregular intervals, like an erratic heart. At night, Ivan examined it by lamplight, noticing patterns on the surface that changed as the moon rose. Yumi watched silently, her eyes reflecting a mixture of reverence and suspicion. One dawn, near a bamboo forest, the air grew thick, and the crystal emitted a low hum. Ivan felt a sharp pain in his neck, followed by flashes of an underground city, its buildings made of a stone identical to the crystal. Yumi held his arm, whispering, "They are here." Among the trees, shadows moved without sound, figures dressed in black, with equipment that glowed faintly. They were neither of the tribe nor ordinary hunters. Reaching the temple ruins, they found a modern structure erected over ancient stones, its access blocked by steel gates. Yumi pointed to a side passage, almost invisible beneath moss and roots. The interior was damp, walls covered with inscriptions that Ivan recognized as similar to those on the crystal. While translating the symbols, the ground trembled, and a section of the floor slid, revealing a steep staircase. In the basement, they found a circular room with 7 empty niches. The crystal, placed in the central niche, projected beams of light that formed a celestial map on the ceiling. Yumi touched one of the walls, and her hand sank into the stone, as if it were water. "This isn't just a place," she said. "It's a doorway." Ivan, however, noticed recent tool marks on the walls. Someone else had been there. Before they could decide their next move, voices echoed from above. The black-clad men had followed them. Yumi suggested hiding the crystal and feigning ignorance, but Ivan insisted on confronting them, arguing that truth needed protecting, not buried. While they argued, the crystal darkened, and the air grew cold. A figure emerged at the entrance, a woman with white hair and military uniform, identifying herself as Dr. Sum, from the research team that funded Ivan's expedition. She spoke calmly, calculatedly. "You don't understand what you have in your hands. That crystal is a key. And there are others." Ivan hesitated, torn between revealing the artifact's whereabouts or trusting this stranger. Yumi, without a word, activated a lever on the wall, causing part of the ceiling to collapse, blocking the entrance. In the ensuing silence, the crystal shone softly, as if approving the decision. But Ivan knew, Dr. Sum wouldn't give up, and the true test was just beginning. The collapse blocked the entrance, but the air grew heavy with strange energy. Ivan looked at Yumi, surprised by her sudden decision. She held the lever tightly, her knuckles white. "They can't know," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, even with trembling hands. The crystal, now opaque, seemed to suck the light around it. From the other side of the barrier, Dr. Sum cried out, her voice muffled by the stone, "You can't protect something you don't understand." Ivan approached the central niche and noticed that the beams of light from the celestial map had turned red. Touching the wall, he felt warm grooves, as if the temple itself were breathing. Yumi knelt and pressed her palm against the floor. "This place speaks," she murmured. "Listen." Ivan leaned in and heard a low, rhythmic humming, similar to the drums of ancient ceremonies. The crystal reacted, projecting holograms of human figures wearing robes, performing rituals around a similar object. Ivan realized these weren't random visions. They were memories of the crystal, records of an ancient people who existed before modern borders. Yumi interpreted the figures' gestures. They shared the power. One crystal for each tribe, guarded by those who understood its weight. This revelation brought a new urgency. If there were other crystals, Dr. Sum wouldn't stop until she found them. As they discussed their next move, the temple trembled again. Water began to seep through the walls, forming streams that shimmered under the crystal's light. Ivan realized the water wasn't reflecting the ceiling, but distant landscapes. Forests, deserts, ruined cities. Yumi dipped her hand into a pool and withdrew a fragment of obsidian, its surface etched with the same symbol as the map. "This isn't water," she said, drying the stone on her tunic. "It's time." Before Ivan could ask, voices echoed from a newly opened passage. This time, it wasn't the black-clad men, but villagers from Yumi's tribe, their faces etched with weariness. One carried a smaller, cracked crystal and spoke quickly in their language. The other artifacts were being stolen by rival groups, all drawn by the same greed that had brought Dr. Sum there. Ivan looked at the crystal in the niche, now radiating a soft, bluish light. His mind returned to the savannah, to the moment he first touched the object. He had been wrong. It wasn't a mirror, but a seed. Each crystal held the potential to build or destroy, depending on who controlled it. Yumi approached, holding the obsidian fragment. "We can break it," she said, "but that will only delay the war. Or we can redefine the rules." With a swift movement, she inserted the fragment into a fissure in the wall. The entire temple vibrated, and the celestial map on the ceiling expanded, revealing unknown constellations. Ivan understood then, the crystals weren't keys, but anchors, connecting places and times. Protecting them meant choosing who would have access to knowledge. Destroying them could shatter the balance between past and future. In the ensuing silence, Yumi took the crystal from the niche and handed it to Ivan. "You began this journey," she said. "Now decide where it ends." He held the object, feeling its weight and its promise. Above, the villagers began chanting an ancient hymn, their voices blending with the temple's humming. Ivan walked to the nearest wall and carefully placed the crystal in a carved recess. Light exploded in all directions, transforming the walls into windows to other realities. A floating city, a sea of liquid crystal, a desert where the dunes sang. Yumi smiled, recognizing visions of her people's legends. "Now they will know," she said. "It's not a treasure, but a test. When the light subsided, the temple was empty, except for a phrase etched into the floor, in every known language: "What you guard, you are." Ivan and Yumi emerged at dawn, the sun dyeing the horizon gold. There was no sign of Dr. Sum or her men. The crystal had vanished, leaving only a circular mark in the niche. Days later, reports arrived from other regions. Similar crystals were found and lost, each accompanied by tales of impossible choices. Ivan returned to the savannah, but he was never the same. Sometimes, touching the earth, he felt a familiar pulse, like a silent answer to unspoken questions. Yumi resumed her role as leader, but her stories now included a geologist who learned that some mysteries exist not to be solved, but to remind us of our smallness. And in Bangkok, in the village where it all began, children played near a sealed cave, its walls adorned with new symbols, a warning and an invitation, waiting for the next era of curious and believing souls.